Hello, my name is Mario. Welcome to another Learning Go video. In today's episode, I'm sharing with you how to interact with relational databases, specifically when using MySQL. As usual, the link to the code will be in the description of this video. Feel free to check that out. So this episode is based on the previous video that I recorded when I introduced database SQL, but I was using the PGX-driver for Postgres. I want to show you a few key differences when using MySQL. First of all, we're going to be using this package called go-sql-driver MySQL. I think it's one of the most popular ones. It works for MariaDB as well. If you want to use that instead of using MySQL, it's basically the same step. So I have this example that, like I mentioned before, that is literally using sort of like example that what we did with PGX, but what I'm going to be doing is showing you the differences, and I'm going to be refactoring this a little bit in the end to show you what is applies specifically to MySQL. There is a README here that is important because I'm going to be using this for running these instructions for running my Docker container locally of MySQL, and also for creating the table. So first things first, I'm going to create this container that is going to be running there. This usually takes a little bit, so you have to wait before you actually interact with MySQL. This is obviously the first time, but as soon as you see this message that says ready for connections, you should be able, or rather not that one, this one, ready for connections, you should be able to actually interact with the database. So now that I have that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the same container name. I'm going to do a MySQL root p localhost, and if you remember, these details were actually the values that I have here in the when I run the container using Docker. So I'm just going to be connecting to the database. The password is password, and now I have my database available. So the DB name is the database that I'm going to be using, so use DB name and just copy and paste what I have above here for creating the table. Now I don't have any users, so select start from users. There are no users. So for this example, I'm going to be creating a record. So insert into users, which will be name and birth year, and values, which will be Mario and 1900. So with this, I can insert a record. If I run this again, I have my record already there. Now, if we go back to the example, what we really need, first of all, is to download the module. And for downloading the module, it's literally just doing a go get MySQL latest. And this will be adding the information that we need to our module. So in our go mod, we actually have this that was just added. We need to call go mod tidy to remove the indirect that is right here. So as soon as that is completed, actually, before I do that, because what just happened is that because I did the mod tidy, it's still referring to the file, to the package that I was using for Postgres. So if we do this again, that's why you saw that it's downloading a few of different packages for Postgres and whatnot. So after I do the mod tidy, I can just reload the file, and the indirect command will be gone. Now, if you're familiar with how the modules work behind the scenes, I have a video as well, so I will be leaving that one in the description, so you can check it out whenever you have some free time. Now, how does it work in reality? Before I do that, I want to show you just a quick walkthrough to the code. It's just basically opening a connection, you know, the typical quick URL configuration for connecting to the database using the DSN. It's opening, like I said, a new connection to the, not the connection, but it's opening the connection, is pinging it and inquiring value that specifically searches for, let me add a break here so it's easier to follow. So specifically is searching for a record that has the name Mario and the birth year 1900, which is what I just added a while ago, if you remember right here. Now, all of this is still using, this should be in Postgres, this should be like this. This is still using all the different configuration values that are coming from Postgres, specifically when using the PGX package. So if we try to do this, literally just changing a few of the configurations that we have. So the user is not user anymore, it's root. We don't need this thing, but I'm going to comment that out for now because it's going to be important in a few moments. And I do MySQL, and in practice, all of this should be working, right? So if I do a go run main, it says that the network is failing. The reason is unknown, and this is when things get a little bit complicated. So I want to show you the actual content that the DSN is generated. Now, I want to show you all of this and explain you why it's important, because the way this package driver, this driver was implemented is a little bit different for the DSN specifically. So if you notice right here is that it's using your scheme and then user, password, and so on and so forth. However, the way the people that work on this package implemented DSN is a little bit different. You notice that there is a username, password, and there is a protocol in here, and the address with the port and so on and so forth. So what will be the protocol then? Well, typically when you're using MySQL and you're connecting to this database, you're going to be using TCP. Obviously, there are other ways to connect to the database, but let's say most of the times you're opening a TCP connection to MySQL. So with this, if we run this again, and now the issue is saying, hey, there is an error because MySQL doesn't have access. But if you remember, we're not using MySQL, we're using root. And here comes the big problem. The issue is that we cannot use url.URL for creating a DSN, a valid DSN. And instead we have to use a type that is coming in the MySQL package that is called config. And this is something that is one of the biggest differences. I will show you the other difference as well. So I just save it so it stops the complaining. So we have MySQL-Config, which is coming. Let me reload this, because typically that's what happens with is this compiling. You know, that happens sometimes with go-please and go-vim. So what I'm going to be doing, which is typically the solution, is to close and open the editor, and that's pretty much it. So there you go. It's one of those things that if you're using go-vim, I'm still having a hard time. But anyways, so we have a user, which will be root. We have a password, which will be password. We have the net, which will be TCP, because that's how we're connecting. The DB name will be DB name. And another thing that I like about this that is added in the package itself is there are a few different arguments that you can pass in when you're connecting to the database, and those will be give you different features depending on which one you use. One that I'm going to be showing you is called parsed time. I'm not going to use it just yet because I want to demonstrate how this works, but it basically just tries to convert the details that are coming from the database that are saved in a timestamp and then convert those into a time type in Go behind the scenes, so you don't have to do the conversion. So for now, I'm just going to comment. I'm going to get rid of this. Yep, we don't need this. We don't need this anymore. We're going to take the config, and the config has a parse DSN, their format DSN method, and that one will be the one that we're going to be using for connecting to the database. Alright, so to recapitulate, we are not using the url.URL that we used before. Now we are using config. Now we run it again. Now it's working. And if you notice, it's failing, but that's expected. Now, if you notice, the actual DSN is following the structure that is coming from the documentation. So you have a user, password, the TCP, the database, and so on and so forth. Okay, so everything seems to be working as expected. So how we go about fixing this unknown $sign error message? So basically in MySQL, instead of using the $sign placeholder, you need to use question mark. And that's basically it. Now you can use whatever you were using before, and it will work. Now, this is what I was showing you a while ago about the parse time option that you can pass in the connection string. And for that, there's actually a type, or rather a field called parse time that is a boolean. You put it true and you run this again, and now it's working. Now the UTC is using UTC behind the scenes, so it's converting those for you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. And that's basically it with MySQL. Literally everything compared to PGX specifically is that the things that you have available are not the same as, or rather, PGX has a way to also interact with Postgres via their own API. This driver does not have that option. You have to use the standard library methods and conventions that are coming from database/SQL, the package in the standard library, for interacting with the database. It's not a big deal, honestly. The only thing that we'll be covering in a future video will be how to do bulk inserts using MySQL. Is similar to PGX, so I hope this makes sense to you. And any questions, any comments, please let me know in the section below. I will talk to you next time. Stay safe and take care.